A man crosses a moonlit plantation. Behind him, another figure follows at a distance. It is taller, darker, and almost without edges, yet its posture is unmistakably his. At the house, neighbors insist they saw the man in two places at once. Malay folklore gives one name to this impossible servant, Hantu Raya, often rendered as a great or mighty spirit. Accounts describe a familiar controlled by a human master, able to work, guard, frighten, or imitate. These are cultural narratives, not verified supernatural evidence. Tonight we will examine why the spirit mirrors its keeper, how service becomes dependence, and why every promise of secret power in the story carries a price that cannot remain hidden. The word hantu can refer broadly to ghosts or spirits in Malay usage, while raya conveys greatness or magnitude in this compound. That does not produce one fixed creature description. Dictionaries, ethnographic writing, oral accounts, and films preserve different emphases. The Hantu Raya may be enormous, shape-changing, invisible, human-like, or attached to a particular keeper. Some traditions treat it as one feared being. Others use the name within a wider world of familiar spirits. Translation can mislead when great ghost sounds like a biological species. Folklore categories are social and flexible. The name tells us about imagined power. The details tell us who is speaking, when, and for what purpose. One of the most unsettling motifs is imitation. The spirit may take the appearance of its owner, creating an alibi, completing work, or appearing where the master cannot be. A double is frightening because it does not announce itself as a monster. It borrows the face that a community already trusts. Stories about doubles test the idea that identity is stable. If two figures look alike, behavior and responsibility become uncertain. Who made the promise? Who caused the harm? The supernatural claim is not evidence of actual duplication, but the narrative problem is real. Power often depends on separating action from accountability. The Hantu Raya makes that separation visible by giving the master's hidden intention a second body. In some accounts, a keeper uses the spirit for heavy labor, protection, agriculture, or tasks beyond ordinary endurance. Other versions make the relationship openly harmful. These different uses matter. A familiar can be described as guardian in one community and predator in another. Yet the labor theme remains revealing. The owner wants results without visible effort, perhaps even in two places at once. The spirit becomes a supernatural explanation for extraordinary productivity or suspicious success. Like the Toyal legend, the story asks where wealth and power come from. If the answer is an unseen servant, then prosperity carries an unseen burden. What appears efficient from outside may depend on coercion, secrecy, and continuing maintenance within the household. Folklore rarely grants power without conditions. Hantu Raya stories describe obligations, offerings, discipline, and rules known only to the keeper. Specific ritual claims differ and should not be treated as instructions or verified practice. Their narrative purpose is clearer. Control is never automatic. The master must continually renew it. Neglect creates danger, while dependence makes withdrawal difficult. This is the structure of a cautionary bargain. The person who sought freedom from ordinary limits becomes less free, organizing life around an invisible obligation. The spirit's appetite may grow, or the keeper's fear may do the same. Either way, secret power changes from possession into possession of another kind. The master is now owned by the need to remain master. Many familiar spirit legends warn that a neglected servant becomes dangerous. The Hantu Raya may disturb the household, attack the keeper, impersonate him unpredictably, or wander without control. Such claims belong to folklore, but they perform important moral work. They reverse the fantasy of domination. A power acquired to remove limits creates a new vulnerability inside the home. The master can no longer simply stop. The warning resembles stories about debt, addiction, or exploitative relationships. What begins as a tool develops its own demands. Horror arrives when the keeper recognizes that obedience was temporary. The spirit has learned the shape of the house, the voices of the family, and the weaknesses of the person who invited it in. Another recurring motif is inheritance. When the keeper grows old or dies, the familiar is said to require a successor. A child or a relative may receive not wealth, but responsibility for a bargain they did not make. Versions differ, and the supernatural claim is not proven. As folklore, however, inheritance gives the story unusual emotional force. Families often receive unresolved debts, reputations, conflicts, and expectations from previous generations. The Hantu Raya turns that invisible transfer into a creature waiting at the threshold. Refusing it may be dangerous. Accepting it continues the cycle. The legend asks whether power can ever be separated from the obligations that produced it, and whether descendants can choose a different future. Film, television, and illustrated magazines transformed flexible Hantu Raya accounts into visible horror. A shape-shifting familiar is difficult to advertise, so media often gives it a large dark body, glowing eyes, and a recognizable relation to its master. Once circulated, that design can feed back into oral memory. People retell what they saw on screen as if the image had always belonged to the legend. Modern stories move the spirit from plantation and village house to city apartment, workplace, and digital chat. The setting changes, but the structure survives. Hidden service, copied identity, secret success, and fear of losing control. Media does not end folklore. It gives old uncertainty new lighting. Spirit language can be part of how a person or community understands distress. That deserves cultural respect, but respect does not require treating every claim as proven. If someone is frightened, ill, missing, threatened, or accused, practical safety and appropriate professional help remain essential. A supernatural explanation should not justify violence, stigma, or neglect. Researchers have documented how popular beliefs continue within modern Southeast Asian life, changing alongside medicine, religion, media, and urbanization. The responsible approach holds two truths together. Folklore can carry genuine meaning, and extraordinary claims still require evidence. Separating categories protects people while allowing the story to be studied in its full social context. At sunrise, the plantation looks ordinary. One man stands on the path, but the trees hold the outline of another body behind him. The Hantu Raya endures because it turns authority into a question. The master commands a servant, yet must feed, hide, fear, and pass it on. The spirit copies his form until the difference between tool and owner becomes unstable. No verified haunting is needed for that moral to work. Power gained without accountability creates obligations that grow in the dark. The legend's final warning is not simply that a spirit may rebel. It is that domination reshapes the person who practices it. When your shadow learns to stand alone, who can still say which one is the master?